So, good morning, everybody. It is 11 in Addis Ababa and 10 o'clock in the Netherlands. So with this, I would like to officially open our webinar of today on the business opportunities in the transport and logistics sector in Ethiopia. Again, thank you all for joining. We will run you through the program today. I will be your host and the moderator, Sander de Waard from the TRAIDE program, and we'll explain more about what we do and more about these sessions for today. But before we start, while people are still trickling in, I see that some more people are coming now. We would just like to start off with some formalities. And let me just briefly explain while also other people are coming in. So for those of you that most likely already noticed this, today we will have speakers and we'll have participants. And the speakers will have a camera and can also speak during their sessions and during the Q&A, but also because of internet reliability and to ensure a smooth process, we have turned off the cameras and the mics for the participants. Do, however, feel free to ask your questions. And for that, we do ask you to ask the questions in the Q&A. So at the bottom of this Zoom meeting, you'll see a button with Q&A. If you have any questions for some of these speakers, please do ask your questions in this Q&A box. And we will try to answer, and we will also ask the speakers to answer already live while we continue with this webinar. But we'll also try to address all these questions during the end of this session, during the Q&A discussion. Please do note that also this session will be recorded. And again, for stability purposes, we have decided to make more of a hybrid combination. So some speakers will speak live, such as Mrs. Elizabeth, but some speakers have already shared a pre-recorded recording with us. So today, especially during the Q&A, we're happy to announce that all the speakers will also be here live so that they can also address some of your questions. So without further ado, those are some of the practicalities. For now, we would like to give the floor to Mrs. Lauwenske from the Netherlands Embassy. May we please ask you to open today's session officially?
Yes, thank you, Sander, and a very warm welcome to all of you. It's great to have so many participants in this session. My name is Lauwenske. I'm the economic counselor at the Netherlands Embassy here in Ethiopia. I've been here for almost 3 years. So we've had COVID, we've had the conflict, but now it's time to look at the future and see what opportunities and possibilities are there. So just to give you a brief overview, I'm sure more will be shared during the session, but Ethiopia and the Netherlands have a very long history when it comes to trade. And the Netherlands is currently the second export market for Ethiopia, mainly because of all the flower growers that we have. More than 85 Dutch investments are currently operating in Ethiopia, of which 80% is in agriculture. But there are other companies here as well. For instance, the dairy processing, you will hear more about them later. But we have the beer companies, some steel companies, we have all kinds of companies. And the situation that Ethiopia is currently in, where they have a very strong focus to become a more market-driven economy, it also meant for us to look at other sectors where we believe a strong connection can be made between the Netherlands and Ethiopia. And this is the first one, logistics and transport, but it's a very important one. Ethiopia has the goal to export more in the coming future. And for that, you need a very strong logistic and transport system. And we believe as the Netherlands that there are relevant Netherlands companies that might be able to play a role in that. So I'm very happy to have this session today. I'm really looking forward to hear from our Ethiopian partners but also our Dutch partners, more about their way of looking at the transport and logistics sector and the opportunities that are there. And please know that we are here for you. So as an embassy, please know that you can always reach out if you have any questions. We're more than willing to help you and support you when you are looking at Ethiopia as maybe your next country to invest in. So let's keep it to this. And Sander, I will give the floor back to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Lavenske, for that nice and warm welcome to all the participants. And also great to hear that the embassy is looking into seeing new opportunities in this sector and is also looking forward to see whether there are new Ethio-Dutch business opportunities, not only in the transport and logistics sector, but also in other sectors in the future. So happy to hear that. And again, thank you for enabling us as the TRAIDE program as well to already, do the first steps to try to get this going. So again, thank you also for all the participants that just trickled in as well. Thank you for joining today and also a warm welcome. Today we'll have a very exciting program, I must say. So we have nice speakers that are based both in Ethiopia and are also in the Netherlands. And they will mostly reflect not only on the entire sector and look at the bigger plans, but they also want to zoom in a little bit more about their perceived challenges, but also their perceived business opportunities. So for today's overall program, we have about 1.5 hours and we'll try to keep a tight schedule. So thank you again, Lavenske, for the warm opening. After this, we will talk as TRAIDE Ethiopia, and we'll explain a little bit more about also what Dutch companies are doing here, but also what TRAIDE Ethiopia can do. Moreover, we have been spending quite some time with developing a report that studies and presents the business opportunities in the transport and logistics sector, which my colleague Thijs Wensink will further explain. Then afterwards, we have the pleasure of Dr. Mengist to further elaborate on the overall plans and the development plans and the associated opportunity. And Dr. Mengist is a part of the Ministry of Transport from the government of Ethiopia. And afterwards, we'll talk very briefly as well, where we have certain speakers from the private sector to specifically reflect on business opportunities, trends within the freight forwarding subsector and also in the cold chain subsector. After we had all our speakers, we will in the meantime, we'll collect all your questions. So again, please, everybody, if you have any questions, please do feel free to write them down in the Q&A box. We will compile all these questions and your questions will subsequently be treated during our Q&A discussion. And thankfully, we will have all our participants as well, our speakers today, that will then live reflect and answer some of your questions. And after which we will wrap up, conclude our webinar at 12:30 Ethiopian time and 11:30 Dutch time. So taking a step back about trade and about the Dutch private sector activity already in Ethiopia, because a lot of it is already happening. And we always want to start with a nice summary quote, which a lot of people actually don't know, because there is already a very strong relationship between Ethiopia and the Netherlands. And the Dutch private sector is a very strategic partner for the Ethiopian government and also therefore feeds into the development agenda of the country. So the Netherlands is one of the largest export destinations of Ethiopian commodities, the 10th largest investor in Ethiopia, and the largest investor from the European Union. So despite that the Netherlands is a very small country, it does pack a serious punch. So whenever we go to what is already happening with Dutch businesses that are already active in Ethiopia, or Dutch and Ethiopian businesses that are trading with one another, we already see that we have about 85 Dutch businesses, which Lavenske already mentioned, that about 80% of them are active in agriculture and in floriculture. These companies create a lot of positive impacts for the country. And one of these many positive impacts is the 35,000 direct jobs that they create, let alone the indirect jobs on how they're contributing. Since 1993, they've already invested over $1 billion into the country. And we also have a significant contribution when it comes to the exports. So in 2020 alone, Dutch companies generated the trade to the Netherlands was $313 million to the Netherlands. And that accounts for 11% of the total exports generated in Ethiopia. So as you can imagine, the presence of these Dutch companies and the Ethio-Dutch business linkages generate a lot of foreign currency, which is also very needed for the development of this country. So about trade, we always try to summarize it, that it is our mandate to increase sustainable business between Ethiopia and the Netherlands. So we do this by also supporting, by doing this, we support the Netherlands Embassy to operationalize their aid and trade agenda, and hence also this webinar of today, where we try to present the business opportunities within the transport and logistics sector. So what do? And what is our mandate? We are here basically to develop new businesses and to attract new businesses. So that is also something that we want to do today. We are here to support the already existing businesses that are already active in Ethiopia. Whenever there's a link between Ethiopia and the Netherlands, that is a mandate where we can basically support and help. And what we find very important in everything that we do is we try to support businesses that are dedicated for sustainable development. So we're trying with all our activities to stimulate responsible business conduct. For those of you that already know us, one of the core values that we have is that we will always be present in the country. So our office is based in Addis Ababa. We always try to explore interesting business opportunities for Ethiopian and Dutch companies. And everything that we do will change very quickly based on demand that we see. So this country, of course, we have very dynamic opportunities, and we'll always be in touch with the Netherlands Embassy and the private sector and other important stakeholders to continuously assess demand and try to jump into things that make sense. So what is it exactly what we do? Well, we do a lot of things for new businesses, but also for already established businesses. We don't have enough time to go through this already now. What you need to understand as well for us is that it is our mandate to increase sustainable business. And for today, we have been, today's webinar is one of our efforts to get new businesses within the transport and logistics sector between Ethiopia and the Netherlands. So we have already conducted a quick scan on this sector, and we have found and reported that there are quite some significant opportunities. And we have listed this in a report, which we can share with you after this webinar. So what can we do for you for now and also in the future? Titus, can you go to the next slide? So we will try to make sure that we also diversify into new promising sectors beyond agriculture, and transport and logistics is one of them. And we've already been doing quite a bit when it comes to understanding whether there are opportunities and organizing this webinar. But you can also count on us on anything related to pushing new business development and pushing new business opportunities. So if some of the participants of you today would see any opportunities, please reach out and we can explore together whether we can, engage in matchmaking, business modeling, connecting to certain instruments. We can basically explore together. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to my colleague, Thijs. He is our technical expert, and he has been studying these business opportunities, and he will briefly elaborate as well today about what we have been observing. For this, I will just get up and I will move seats. Thijs?
Yes, thank you very much, Sander, for your introduction. Indeed, my name is Thijs Wensing, a colleague of Sander's, and I've dug into the Ethiopian logistics sector over the last period. And I think I would start off by stating some obvious facts about Ethiopia. I'm not here to lecture you. I think I saw that a lot of participants are coming from Ethiopia. So therefore, you probably know more about the country than I do. I've been only living here for 2.5 years at the moment. But it is the second most populous country on the African continent. It has over 110 million. I think we're getting close to 120 million inhabitants. And it's growing and growing. The country is also very large. So I saw this image on the right side of the slide popping up on LinkedIn last week that got shared quite a lot. That tells you a little bit on how big the country actually is. So it's covering almost the entire all the West European countries. So the total land size is over 1 million kilometers. One of the disadvantages of Ethiopia is that it's landlocked. So therefore it has to rely on ports of other countries for a lot of their imports and exports via sea freight. Ethiopia is also experiencing a large trade deficit. So they're importing way more than that they're exporting, but I'll zoom into that a little bit later. And if you follow the news a bit, you probably would have read that the country's stability was quite challenging over the last 2 years. But we hope that the current developments that are happening will provide Ethiopia a more promising future. And if I look into how well is Ethiopia performing currently when it comes down to the whole logistics sector. So the last logistic performance index by the World Bank was drafted at 2018, and Ethiopia ranked 131. So there's a lot of opportunity to improve and to process. When we dig into the trade deficit, Ethiopia is exporting mainly agricultural products. On the left, you can see that coffee, for which Ethiopia is well known, is the biggest export product. But we're also exporting vegetables, flowers is very dominated by the Dutch sector, and other agricultural products. And when you look at the imports, the majority is being accounted for by fuels. So fuels, medicine, and wheat to feed that 110 million sized population are the biggest imports. But if you take a look at the total numbers, so on average from 2018 to 2020, Ethiopia exported yearly 2.6 billion, but imported 14.6 billion. So that's almost 5 times the size of the, almost 6 times more than they exported. So there's a huge trade deficit. As Laurenske and Sander both mentioned, the Netherlands is one of the key countries to which it exports. Somalia and the United States were in 2018 till 2020 on average a little bit bigger. But I think we moved up to the second spot at the moment, like Laurenske said. And Ethiopia is mainly importing a lot from China and India. The Netherlands is only ranked as 11th when we look at the 2018 to 2020 numbers. But we hope that with facilitating more trade, the Netherlands will rise in this list. Zooming into specifically what trade is happening with the Netherlands currently, it is very good to mention that the Netherlands is one of the few countries with which Ethiopia has a positive trade balance. So Ethiopia is actually exporting more to the Netherlands than it is importing from the Netherlands. Exports from Ethiopia are mainly in the floriculture sector. So we have roses, cuttings, and cut flowers. And this is generating a lot of foreign currency for the country. So this sector is very important for both the trade between the Ethiopian Netherlands, but also for Ethiopia in general. When we take a look at what is Ethiopia importing from the Netherlands, it's mainly medicines and engines and motors. So there is a lot of room to diversify this trade and to seek new opportunities for trade between the Netherlands and Ethiopia. If we take a look at how do products from abroad arrive in Ethiopia, then the vast majority is coming via the port of Djibouti. Over 90%, I think even 95%, depending on the year you're looking at, is transported from Djibouti towards Addis Ababa and other parts of the country. And of this, the majority is still transported by road and truck. There is nowadays a train line that connects Addis Ababa with Djibouti, and it currently accounts for around 25% of the total imports and exports. The rail transportation is developing. Dutch partners are involved, of which Daan from Flying Swans will elaborate a little bit more. And it looks very promising, and it cuts down the transport times by 3 times, I think, when you look at when you compare it with the road transportation. Ethiopia is using more export channels than only Djibouti. So exports also go via the port of Sudan, in Somaliland via Berbera, and it's good to zoom into the exports that are happening from Bole International Airport. So a lot of the cut flowers from Dutch companies here in Ethiopia are being flown via Ethiopian Airlines from Bole International Airport. And Ethiopian Airlines really proved to be a reliable and stable partner during the COVID-19 crisis. The vast majority of all the flights from Ethiopian still continued, and even changed passenger planes into cargo planes in order to accommodate all the demand. For the floriculture, they are currently experimenting with sea freight as well, so that will be a nice opportunity to look into as well, using the railroad systems that we have over here. So if I take a look what is happening currently in Ethiopia in general, so not specifically the logistics, but in general, Ethiopia, as we saw, is relying a lot on agricultural products, but they like to make a shift towards a more industrialized economy. All over the country, different industrial parks are popping up, often located close to major roads or the rail tracks, and they like to diversify their export products. Ethiopia is currently also in the progress of becoming a member of the African Continent Free Trade Agreement and the World Trade Organization. Things are in progress, not a member yet, but these look very promising for the Ethiopian economy in general. One of the biggest challenges in the country currently is a shortage of hard currency, foreign exchange. So there's the export business will be very, very important for Ethiopia. As we mentioned, currently, Djibouti is the main port for Ethiopia, especially for the imports, but not to be reliant on just a single port. They're currently exploring the opportunities to also diversify and make more use of other ports, in which they are currently also involved in the development of the port in Somaliland. And one of the key items, especially for this webinar, is that they are getting more privatized. So sectors are opening up. The telecommunications sector is welcoming Safaricom pretty soon. Foreign banks are also able to come to Ethiopia in the near future, and also the logistics sector will create more opportunities for private companies. Currently, the majority of the work is being done by government-owned companies, but by allowing other companies to come in, the Ethiopian government hopes that it will create more competition and really create an efficiency gain for the sector. So why are we having this webinar then? Well, we see there's a lot of knowledge and expertise in the Dutch logistical sector. The Dutch top sector logistic has a lot of overlap with the current demands of the Ethiopian logistics sector. And I think that the connection between the Dutch knowledge and the Ethiopian challenges will really create some nice opportunities. The Ministry of Transport and Logistics created a list of 44 different sectors, opportunities where foreign companies can invest in. Some are more for funds, others are really for private sector. And in this webinar, we're only scratching the surface of the different opportunities that are there. So we will have a look at the cold chain logistics and more about the freight forwarding and multimodal transportation, but other abundant opportunities are there as well. For instance, about last mile transportation, IT services to make planning more efficient, or even mass passenger transportation services throughout the country or only in Addis Ababa. So the opportunities for private investments in Ethiopia are abundant, and we really hope that with this logistics sector and with this webinar, we can really create a forefront for the development of more Ethio-Dutch businesses and trade.
Thank you very much, Thijs, for your presentation. And yeah, very exciting to learn that, although perhaps, well, to see that there are so many opportunities for growth and that there are lots of opportunities to diversify as well and to move into this logistics sector. So again, thank you for that, Thijs. Moving on to Dr. Mengist Hailemariam. He's the strategic advisor of the Maritime Affairs Authority. And we have asked Dr. Mengist to reflect on the Ethiopian perspective, specifically the perspective of the Ethiopian government. Titus, can you perhaps play the recording for this?
Thank to the Netherlands Embassy and the team to meet us on this important topic. And my name is Mengist. I'm from Ministry of Transport and Logistics, Maritime Authority, and I'm a strategic advisor there. And I will be presenting on the opportunities in the Ethiopian logistics sector, focusing on three basic sectors: freight forwarding, multimodal, and cold chain logistics. And I'll focus on two important points in this presentation. One is the challenges we faced in this sector, and then the plans and the aspiration of the Ethiopian government and the opportunities in order to bring operators here in the country. And for that, related to the challenges, of course, the challenges of the three sectors won't be different from the entire logistics. And the logistics sector is the Ethiopian logistics sector entirely defined as inefficient because of many challenges. And the Ministry of Transport and Logistics has through IMA conducted a diagnosis study to identify the challenges of the logistics sector in general and come up with solutions. That is what we call the National Logistics Strategy. And the diagnosis study indicated that our logistics service in many ways is not compatible and cope up with the sector's development. And it is beyond, it is below the same economy that we have in Africa and in other nations. So the logistics challenge could be defined in terms of time, which is delayed in terms of time, and the cost is also not encouraging, and the logistics service is not integrated. Hence, our logistics service is inefficient. Therefore, the government has acknowledged this, and the government has finalized and under implementing the national logistics strategy. So the implication from the diagnosis has been defined in two ways. One is that building a strong logistics capability for Ethiopia is a primary task. And hence, the transformation is very, very important. Therefore, a national logistics strategy has been approved, and it's under implementation for the last 2 years. This is a solution platform that improves the logistics performance of the country as per the objective and the target. So despite this, we have different opportunities. I mean, the logistics sector is priority sector, and it also the import and export flow, cargo flow is increasing, and the transport infrastructure is improving, and there is intermodal facilities that support the logistics service, and export diversification has been given priority from the government. Therefore, the government aims to use this opportunity so that the logistics sector improvement will be important to the nation. Therefore, the Ethiopia government has plan and aspiration, and the vision of the strategy is just to be the leading country in 2028 by the leading in Africa by 2028, and that means we are going to transform the Ethiopian logistics sector in the coming 10 years. That brings a lot of plans. That means the government is trying to make the logistics to enable the national development, and the logistics sector has to contribute. And also the government aspires and plan to provide systematic solution for the logistics sector, like open up of the multimodal transport, the freight forward, the last mile delivery, free zones, driver development and services, transport investment in connecting truck and rails. These are some of the important aspirations that we have. And the government is also looking to provide direction and leadership on this, and the National Logistics Council, chaired by Her Excellency, the Ministry of Transport, is chairing that, and that has brought a lot of changes to the sector. So there are also aspirations, incentives to those who are interested to work on this. The tax relief, logistics service intensives, which has not been before, now is coming up, and also policy on expatriation of proceeds. These are some of the incentives that the government is planning to give for investment. Therefore, we encourage everyone to work with Ethiopia, and the logistics sector is promising, and especially we are working in the cold chain logistics with Netherlands government. That is really a very important milestone, and we are working on that. EMA is always welcoming to discuss on related issues, and hope this initiative will support Ethiopia and the Netherlands as usual. Thank you so much.
Very nice. Thank you again, Dr. Mengist, for making this recording. Dr. Mengist is a busy man, so at the moment he is in the airplane, but hopefully he will be in time to also answer some of your questions live in a little bit. I think it's very interesting already to learn now that there is a call for efficiency, and perhaps that there are also some related business opportunities with that, and that the Ethiopian government is interested also to facilitate that with certain investment incentives. In the meantime, before we go to the next speakers, just a kind reminder again to the participants, perhaps if you have joined later as well, if you have any questions for some of the speakers, please do ask these questions via the Q&A. I also see some raised hands. Unfortunately, we cannot give the participants now the floor, but please ask your question via the Q&A. So thanks again. Then moving onward towards the next speaker, we have asked Yodit Logistics company, also active in Ethiopia, to reflect on the current challenges, but also their perceived opportunities in their transport and logistics activities. Unfortunately, Mr. Bemnet could not make the recording, so just a quick switch. We have asked Mr. Siraj to make a video, so he will then briefly explain with that, but the company will also be present during the Q&A, so you can also ask your questions to Mr. Bemnet and colleagues directly afterwards.
Hello everyone. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Siraj. I'm a partner and also logistics manager at BFYB PLC. Before I'm heading to say something regarding the practice and challenges of logistics that our company has expressed while working here in Ethiopia, I'd like to say something regarding our company. BFY PLC is a privately owned logistics and freight forwarding company engaged in providing customs clearance, inland transportation, port and terminal handling, air and sea freight forwarding, and also warehousing services. The industry, the logistics industry is full of bottlenecks. It can be said a lot, but I would like to say or I would like to mention the general bottlenecks that every company are currently experiencing. Among those challenges, inadequate infrastructure or poor infrastructure is among those challenges. The other one is inadequate track. There is the lack of adequate track which can help to give a fast and reliable service of logistics. The other one is weak legal and institutional arrangements. The institutional arrangements of the private and also the government needs more enhancement and more improvement. The other one is underdeveloped logistics sector. The logistics sector has to be advanced and also equipped with more technological advancements. The sector has to update its own self by equipping the professional employees, by working together with the international companies through exchanging information, knowledge, and a lot of things can be said. The other one is increasing duration of container at dry port. This problem is due to many factors. The government stakeholders who are responsible for such services can be mentioned, such as the Customs Commission and the Ethiopian Shipping and Logistics Service Enterprise had their own part regarding these bottlenecks. These government institutions are full of corruption, and their services not equipped with technologies. They use the human power rather than technologies for examination and also for scanning shipments. Their service providing quality is very low, and
Titus, when I'm referring, when I'm seeing the screen, it is frozen now. Do we see, is there an issue with the video?
No, I think the video got cut short when uploading, I think.
Okay. Well, in terms of, then for time purposes, I would propose that we proceed as well. And if you have any specific questions for Mr. Siraj, then, and basically also for Yodit Logistics, you can also ask them during the Q&A. So again, thank you, Mr. Siraj, for sharing your reflections. Interesting to see that you have very concrete examples and very detailed experiences on what kind of challenges you are facing. And what I do really hear from you as well is that some of these challenges are also leave a lot of room for private sector opportunities for businesses, but perhaps also opportunities for future government-to-government programs. So again, thank you for that. Then afterwards, I am very pleased that we can move on to Ms. Elizabeth Getahun. She is the president of the Ethiopian Freight Forwarders and Shipping Agents Association, also known as the EFFSAA. And she's also the owner of Pan-African Global. Mrs. Elizabeth will be joining with us today live. So thank you again for joining. May I ask you to take the stage?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It's a nice, wonderful presentation. Netherlands is my second home as I am educated in The Hague. So I'm happy to come up with business with you. So next slide, please. I'll give you a brief presentation on from the private sector's perspective on the opportunities and challenges. So my presentation will cover the following topics. So please, next slide. So Ethiopian logistics, as you know, I think logistics is a key player in all economic sector in the whole world. Likewise, in Ethiopia, almost all economic activities of the country are dependent on foreign trade because we are import-dominated economy. So logistics, particularly international logistics, is very vital for the Ethiopian economy, as the ratio of import to export is 7-to-1 ratio. So more than 90% of the country is international trade, which is also mainly seaborne, although we use air freight mode as well for international cargo. So when we are talking about freight forwarding, we are mostly now focusing on international logistics rather than Ethiopian domestic logistics. So next slide, please. At the moment, Ethiopia being a land-linked country, we are using mainly Port of Djibouti for over 90% of our cargo. However, we started using Tajura port, which is again in Djibouti as a country, but about 3 to 6% of our cargo is now diverted to Tajura port. We are also considering Berbera and other ports, and we are also Lamu port from Kenya and Massawa for some of the cargos as well. We are not happy that we are only concentrating on a single port. That's why our national logistics strategy is also telling us to use and diversify our port utilization. So the country's major economic and commercial areas located in the sea coast, mostly hinterland. And, you know, it is said, I think it might also work for all the countries. Most of the costs of any commodity belongs to logistics cost. If we think of a pen, the cost of the pen goes mostly to the logistics. So that's why we have to be very careful of the logistics efficiency and the logistics cost also as a country. And we are aware as a private sector as well as government is also aware currently that the logistics sector is very vital sector to enhance the development of Ethiopia. Next slide, please. So the logistics challenge that we have currently, apart, among so many of them, these are the major one, the infrastructure limitation. Sorry, the Forex shortage is the next one, which is actually acute currently, particularly. I'm wondering if the investors are also suffering from this Forex shortage. And logistics sector requires high capital investment. Government regulations are also cumbersome, and government is aware of it, private sector is aware of it, administrative inconsistencies. Although the regulations are improved, sometimes we are facing difficulties because of administrative inconsistency and bottlenecks of the functionaries, the way people are understanding the subject of logistics itself and the subject of time and logistics, how they are highly incorporated. So besides this, one of the major sector that we are facing in this sector, major problem that we have is fragmented industry, because logistics has multiple players and each of them are playing separately. They make their decision on a separate basis. One is not controlling the other because there is no single entity that is running the logistics. The regulatory the bodies, like INSA for security gadgets, ELPA or Ethiopian Electric Power Authority, Ethiopian Telecommunication, all these standard, all these offices that has to give their input for the logistics efficiency They're not working as one. However, let's go to the next slide and understand that we start beginning harmonizing this as a system. So there are some anticipated changes that we see as a private sector. The Logistics Transformation Office, which is established to implement the National Logistics Strategy, which is now under implementation. According to the recent report that I have heard, over 50% of the National Logistics Strategy is either mostly completed or over 60% completed, which means that most of the things are taken care by under the Logistics Transformation Office. That does not mean that these are already implemented and the logistics practice is changed. Yet there is a lot of things that has to be done. One of the things that the Logistics Transformation Office or National Logistics Strategy has performed is liberalization of the sector. As you are aware, 49% of the logistics on a JV basis, it's open. The multimodal transport is open now, although it is not yet for implementation. The policy and the regulation, everything is completed. We are waiting for the implementation. Electronic single window and automation has done a lot, particularly following the pandemic. The electronic single window incorporated about 14 offices, regulatory bodies into the system, and we start using the electronic, although it has its own problem because of system interruption, but that is a good beginning. So these are also the changes. Some infrastructure developments are also going, not as much as we want, but we see a lot of changes as well there. Dry port investment is open now for the private sector, including the international. I think this on the joint venture basis as well. So that's also a good opportunity. Cold chain and warehouse developments are some of the things that are already under implementation. Diversification of port has started, as I have told you already, from Port of Djibouti to Tajura port, and also a little bit of Berbera Somaliland port. We started in the Sudan port to some extent we started using. So this year we have seen a little bit of improvement and encouraging the private sector by the government. We now they start listening to us. We start working together. We have a seat in the Logistics Council, our association, as representing our association. I sit in the council for some of the, so we voice also our logistics voice in the council. There are workable policies are coming in place. Government, logistics as a sector becomes a government priority. As you might have already know, even the Ministry of Transport, the one who is directing this sector, is named Ministry of Transport and Logistics. This is a big step forward. So boosting the logistics service and proficiency in general is promoted by the government. So next slide, please. So what are the opportunities there for the private sector of the national and international is for both. Ethiopian's trade is going to grow. As the first presenter presented it, we have the second highly populated area. We have a big country. It is automatic. The need for logistics is going to grow. So that is a big opportunity. So trade is going to grow. It is the population is also a very young population, which the logistics sector demands young, dynamic population. So that is also a great opportunity for whoever is investing in the logistics. And the prospect, trade and development would require fundamental advancement in the logistics service to serve the ever changing business need. So there is a huge opportunity for the business community and also for the producers. When the logistics grows, productivity growth, likewise productivity growth, logistics growth. So we see really, really massive opportunity here in the logistics sector in terms of development. I mean, dry port, rail development. There are a big opportunity in terms of investment opportunities. Whoever is coming with knowledge and sufficient capital. Next slide, please. So our recommendation, and some of which we have already communicated with the government, is incorporate best practices in the logistics operator, because the practices that there are already good practices internationally. So as a latecomer, we have that advantage. So we will be able to use that, increase the quality to provide the service provision of by added value, because most of our products are exported like coffee without being given added value, just raw, fresh, green products. So it is very important. Logistics has a great role in that. So as a private sector, we recommend also most of the products, the logistics added value service can be done locally here. And enhancing the public awareness. Awareness is a key, particularly the regulatory bodies, all the decision-making bodies, the port authorities, the local offices. They need to have sufficient awareness and capacity to perform efficient logistics. And for this, the key is capacity building, and automation is the key for the logistics sector. So integrated and automated logistics solution is a vital element, which we have already proposed to the Logistics Transformation Office. I understand they start working on it. When our logistics is integrated and automated, I think we will be able to have the logistics service that the 21st century in Ethiopia demands and requires. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Elizabeth, for your reflections and also for joining us today. I think it's very refreshing to see that you are anticipating already a lot of changes and that a lot has already been done. So happy to see how you're looking forward and describing the opportunity to leapfrog into new practices. Because again, I hope we are really at the forefront here for something new, or for new Ethio business development in this sector. So again, thank you for your presentation. Next up, we have Mr. Daan Paardekoper. He is the business developer of the Flying Swans. During the introductions and also during the welcome of Mrs. Lawenska, we have already referred to the Dutch support to develop the cold chain logistics. So we've asked Daan to give a brief presentation where they are reflecting on the Ethiopian cold chain and specifically also about their program. Before we proceed, I again would like to invite all the participants that if you have any questions, please ask them in the Q&A and we'll treat them during the discussion at the end of this program.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to my pre-recorded presentation on export agrologistics. My name is Daan Paardekoper. I'm with the Flying Swans program from the Netherlands. Today I'll briefly talk about what we're doing in Ethiopia and what the opportunities are for logistics businesses, both from Ethiopia and internationally, that result from these projects. Let's get into it straight away. Who is the Flying Swans? We are a Dutch public-private initiative. We are supported by the companies that you see on the screen here, and we are funded by the government of the Netherlands. Our main activities is the development of agro-logistics projects in emerging economies, with the main goal of enabling or enhancing the export of high-value perishable goods such as fruit and vegetables from these emerging markets. Why are we doing this? Well, we have three main reasons. First of all, the Netherlands holds a status as Europe's marketplace for fruit and vegetables, and has an interest in preserving that status. And our projects, by working close to the source, will help with volume continuing to go to the Netherlands, to the European markets. Secondly, we're looking to create opportunities for Dutch businesses, both in agriculture and logistics. And thirdly, we believe that enabling export for agriculture products hold huge potential for development impact, so job creation, economic growth, CO2 suppression, etc. So that is what we do and why we do it. Let's get to what we're doing in Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, we have found that when you look at the sunshine, the rainfall, the amount of land available, the elevation, that all the ingredients are there for Ethiopia to become a major player, a global leader in the export and production of horticulture. I think this potential is already demonstrated by Ethiopia's leadership position in the flower export, but we believe that it can be expanded to a lot of other crops, notably avocado, which is a very valuable crop and where Ethiopia is very well positioned, both climatologically and market-wise, to become a global leader. However, logistics still forms a major bottleneck in this instance. The road to Djibouti is unpredictable, perilous, and expensive. On the last part, $2,500 per leg makes for, because you usually have to pay for both legs, $5,000 logistics cost to Djibouti, only getting the container from Ethiopia to Djibouti and back. And that already puts your supply chain costs so high that it's really hard to be competitive in your markets. And we see that the railway line offers a significant opportunity to overcome this, where railway transport can be twice as cheap as truck transport, it can be more reliable, and it can be of higher quality. The cooling can be of higher quality, so that the quality of the products is higher in end markets. However, a train carries a lot more volume than a truck, so a logistical interface is needed between producers and the railway line in order to be able to fill trains and in order to be able to consolidate the produce of different producers into containers and trains. That is our principal project right now in Ethiopia. It's called Kulpert Addis, which you can see on this slide. Kulpert Addis is a centrally located public infrastructure, a consolidation facility and cold storage where producers and or exporters can bring their produce to be stored and wait for the train under the right temperature, consolidated into reefer containers and be loaded on the train for Djibouti and eventual export destinations. Kulpert Addis should be available to farmers and exporters of all sizes. And if needed for smallholder services, can also provide services such as packing, grading, and phytosanitary checks, so that farmers can focus on producing and exporting, and Kulpert Addis can form the key part of the chain that is needed for export. That's what we're developing. As part of the preparation of this, we have already had some successes. This was about 1.5 years ago when we organized together with an Ethiopian exporter and a Belgian importer the first ever train carried shipment from Ethiopia to Europe of avocados. These avocados is about 22 tons in the container, reached Europe successfully and were graded by European importers to be of some of the highest quality of the season. So very promising developments. This was a joint effort between the Netherlands and Ethiopia. As you can see in the picture here, about on the left side, I think I can point it out here, the Ethiopian Minister of Transport, Yodit Logistics, standing next to the Dutch Deputy Ambassador, Thijs Woudstra. And if I'm not mistaken, over here we also have Dr. Mengist Hailemariam, which, if I look at the agenda, will also be present here today. So it was a good joint effort and really showed us the promise that avocado export can bring for both Ethiopia and the Netherlands. Now this is still quite far away, but this is an initial trial shipment. What is the eventual goal here? Back to this map, we're looking at not just Kulpert Addis and a trial shipment, but over the next decades we are looking at a national cool logistics network of consolidation facilities and expanding together with the expanding railway line. So to start off, corporate others will have a national reach in order to really kickstart the horticulture export sector. But as it grows and matures, different regions can have their own consolidation facilities connected to the national railway network. Now, it might seem like this is far away and very ambitious, but this is already happening across the world. This is South Africa, what you're looking at. And this is a train carrying 50 refrigerated containers of 25 tons of citrus each from northern South Africa to export ports in Durban and Cape Town. In the peak season in South Africa in July and August, there is a train, more than one train like this per day carrying fruit from production to port. And when we look at South Africa versus Ethiopia, in terms of potential, we see Ethiopia as much bigger when it comes to production. So while it is a long-term view, it is still very much within reason to expect daily trains like this filled with valuable export produce going from Ethiopia to the port of Djibouti every day. That brings us to the end of my presentation. I want to close off and maybe starting the discussion already. We have listed a number of opportunities for Ethiopian and Dutch businesses that may arise when export horticulture becomes more feasible. Then you're looking at value chain services like manufacturing and import of packaging materials, advisory and phytosanitary, etc., more agricultural services. There's also harder services such as trucking to consolidation facilities, the operation of consolidation facilities, because that may be privatized as well, and soft logistics services such as freight forwarding of fresh produce and matchmaking with international importers so that reefer containers can not only be full on the outgoing leg but also on the incoming leg. I think this is something interesting that we can discuss right now in the discussion. Hopefully we have time for it. Maybe we've run a bit over schedule. I'm going to stop here because I'm already a little bit over schedule, but thanks a lot for your time and attention, and looking forward to have an interesting discussion now. Okay, thank you.
Very nice. Thank you again, Daan, for your reflections. And very interesting to also learn that the real efficiency only can already be cut in half by the train, and that apparently there are many business opportunities that are unlocked. So happy to hear more about your project and to learn more about all these specific investment opportunities. So thank you again for that, Daan. Then after this, we will move onwards to a recording that we made before from Mr. Merijn Goris. I already see that Merijn also popped up on screen, but we have a recording. So let's play the recording first, and then afterwards, we are going to move on towards the whole discussion where we'll also invite all the speakers to react to some questions.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Merijn Goris. I'm the general manager of Holland Dairy, and I've been asked by the trade organization if I could share, let's say, an introductive video on our activities here in Ethiopia, possibilities in the cold chain logistics, etc. I'm standing right here on our compound in Addis Ababa. We have a factory in Debrecen. And we recently we rented a compound in Addis Ababa with an office, but also with a cooled warehouse. And I will tell you a little bit about that later. As you can see, I'm standing here proudly with proudly waving flags in the background. The Holland Dairy flag, of course, in the middle, very proudly waving, but also the Ethiopian flag and the Dutch flag, meaning we are of Dutch background, but also 100% proudly Ethiopian. Let me just quickly show you around. You see some cars behind me, but let me also introduce the reason why we actually rented this compound. So let me turn around quickly and you will see our entrance. Things are still under construction, but one of the first things you see is a reefer container which we just painted in our brand colors. Logos, of course, still to be added. But a reefer container, all ready to kick off the subject, because we need our dairy products to be available cooled and sometimes even frozen in our compound. And then let me turn a bit more, and you will see over there, the entrance doors to our warehouse. And I will guide you through it in a little bit, but basically to explain you about our operations to maintain the cold chain, it's the following. We have, like I said, a factory in Debrecen. It's a city just south of Addis Ababa, about an hour, let's say 45 minutes, for our trucks to drive. But 95% of our market is in Addis and surroundings. It means that our trucks have to go all the way from Debrecen to Addis Ababa every day, 1 hour back and forth, with some traffic even more. So that takes up to 2 to 3 hours of driving time that we cannot use as delivery time every day for all of our trucks. And those trucks have to leave from the factory, because in the factory we have a cold warehouse, and all of our trucks have coolers and are equipped with isolated bodywork, so that we maintain the cold chain. But with this warehouse that we have, we can bring or we can shorten the cold chain, because we can start driving with large trucks between our factory and the Addis Ababa warehouse, cooled warehouse, like I said, to replenish the warehouse, and our smaller sales trucks, delivery trucks, they can start driving from here. So we can maintain the cold chain, but we can shorten delivery times and routes, increasing our routes per day. So very easy calculation. One truck can do one route or one delivery route of about 50 to 60 customers per day now, and we estimate that they can start doing 2 routes of 40 up to 50 customers per day once we have this warehouse in operation. Of course, very interesting, because with only the investment of the warehouse, we can expand our distribution capacity. Now, why is this so important for this topic, as we are maintaining our cold chain? Well, the interesting part of investment opportunities on logistics on this topic is that there are very few parties that have a proper cold chain, both on cooled as well as frozen products. Meaning that we have to do these investments ourselves, but we also have to be able to reach the full environment of the city, and we don't have that amount of trucks. So I would be looking every day for proper distributors that can ensure a cold chain to areas in the city, or even outside of the city, that I cannot reach with my own truck. Because now sometimes I have to deliver to distributors that I know cannot ensure 100% a cold chain to our customers that we don't reach directly. Therefore, I think three very interesting investment opportunities if I were operating in cold chain logistics. One, distribution or supply, better said, of coolers for vans, Isuzu vans for example, so the distribution vans that ensure this cold chain, or just supply the trucks themselves, as well as other body parts, for example, that keep them isolated. Second one is to supply cold warehouse materials for distributors that might be interested in setting up this cold chain, or maybe even retailers themselves. And thirdly, if you really want to build a business here, we could definitely do with, let's say, pure players that are only focused on providing proper cooled logistics in Addis and around. Like I said, I cannot think of one at the moment. Most retailers and companies are doing this themselves. Huge capex investments, and in the end, what we are good at is making yogurt and building brands, and providing the logistics. We're not bad at it, but pure players will always be better at it. So if you're looking for an investment like that, starting a company in that area, I think there's a lot of opportunities here. But like I said, also to finalize in the material section. So again, I'll give you a quick tour of what our compound looks like, and let me end with the flags in the back again. I'd be happy to tell you a bit more about opportunities that are there, but I'm 100% sure that Sander and his team from TRAIDE, together with Nick, can definitely help you out on that. Maybe we see each other during the seminar. For now, I'm gonna close. Ciao.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Merijn, for this nice tour. Actually, I think it's very original, and it's good to see how your business is really trying to work throughout this span of control to improve basically milk produce and yogurt produce and other dairy produce throughout the whole entire supply chain. So thank you again for sharing that. Again, thank you all speakers for your presentations. Now we've had all these presentations, so we learned a little bit more background. Some of the challenges have been described, but also the opportunities have very specifically been mentioned, for instance, also by Daan, also by Merijn. So we would like to move on towards the Q&A, and we want to have facilitated discussion amongst the speakers. But before we begin, we have just put in the chat a link to a survey. So where every participant that sees any opportunities or wants to ask other questions, or perhaps wants to ask questions to us directly about how we can support, please fill in the survey now or at the end of the webinar to evaluate and ask questions. So without further ado, thanks again, everybody. Thank you, speakers, for your presentation today. And also thank you for joining today's sessions. I think we have not so many questions actually for you, but luckily we also, and again, some of these questions have already been answered, but luckily we also already prepared some of these questions. What I would like to start for today, and maybe again jumping straight onto your presentation, Merijn, I would like to focus a little bit on some specific business opportunities. You are already mentioning 3, but I understand as well, because Holland Dairy does a lot of investments and activities to try to span the entire supply chain. And of course, you're also dealing with buying milk. So especially you have some experience in the last mile distribution, but also perhaps the last mile sourcing of it. Merijn, and perhaps also afterwards other speakers, can you please reflect upon the opportunities that you perceive and also the challenges when it comes to last mile distribution, especially since this country is so big?
Sure. Thanks, Sander. Quite an interesting question, because there might indeed be difference between last mile distribution when it comes to sales and distribution, and let's say last mile or first mile logistics when it comes to collection. First of all, distribution. I realized when I looked at I was looking at myself in the video, horrible experience, but I was really focusing on our distribution in Addis, and that's because, like I said, 95% of our product is in Addis. That's not necessarily by choice, in the sense that there are a lot of people working in Addis, so there's huge opportunity for us here, and we don't need to expand at the moment. Let's first get our supply straight in the city and environment. On the other hand, there's a huge opportunity to send, I don't know, cooled products to Afar. I'm inventing it here, but we have one distributor in Harar. He has a cooled van, but it's even quite difficult to get our product. He collects his products at our place, but there's only one distributor that has then the opportunity to bring the products in an 8-hour drive all the way over there. And that hampers the opportunity to get high quality cooled products, not only dairy, to other areas that might need it the most, where there are no imported products or whatsoever. So the alternative for that is to have, in our case, long shelf life products. But even there, the capex investments are huge, because then I need to purchase a $1 million ultra high temperature line. It's specific for dairy, but that's that part. So to get the fresh product, there is an opportunity there also for the longer logistics. And when it comes to first mile, same case. And I didn't think we touched upon it, but farmers that milk their cows, they don't obviously have the opportunity to cool it back. And that is one main driver of our quality. And we ensure the cold chain from the moment of milk collection at our milk collection centers. But yeah, an opportunity would be to provide smallholder farmers with small cool capacity, and it doesn't have to be huge, in order to maintain the quality of their milk. For them, being able to increase their quality means also increase their price, increase, let's say, their business, and also the income for their family, because that's also one of the reasons why we're here. So yeah, a lot to touch upon. I hope that answers a little bit your question, Sander. So I think to summarize, I zoomed in on really sales and distribution. There are opportunities, of course, in logistics, but I think the later, let's say, further logistics in this huge country, yeah, it needs investment, but also brings a lot of opportunity, because there are, I think, investment opportunities there and investors willing to do it. And on the, let's say, the first mile, opportunities there to help farmers, and also, yeah, also bring the people in this country forward, not only investing and making money, but having a positive social impact for the ones that need it most. I hope that answers your question.
I think so. Thank you so much, Merijn, for reflecting indeed, because we do understand indeed that there are a lot of challenges, of course, in this dairy supply chain, of course, in this dairy value chain. But also thank you again for specifically mentioning certain opportunities with first and last mile distribution. And I already see a certain entrepreneurial mind to perhaps also really jump into maybe new opportunities, perhaps yourself as well, or perhaps with some of the attendees here.
let's first get a few things straight before we do that. But the land is full of opportunities. I think that covers definitely it.
Very good. Thank you, Merijn. So maybe trying to jump onto that as well. And I see a raised hand already from Daan. Of course, that whole supply chain on dairy, it also relates to, of course, also other produce. Daan, would you like to reflect on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know too much about the milk and yogurt, but I do know something about fruit. And a lot of what Merijn says resonates with me, especially what he said at the end about looking at the beginning of the chain, the first mile, and helping smallholder producers get better quality assurance facilities. And I think it's good to add that when you think about giving smallholder producers access to better refrigeration, of course, the first thing that comes into your mind is a big, expensive refrigeration cell. But I think it's important to look at the status quo, and at least from my perspective, when you look at the fruit, the status quo right now is putting collected fruit in the sun, or maybe at most under a tree. And what we find is that to get significant improvements in qualities and reduction in losses, you don't have to, at least for fruit, I don't know if it's the same for milk, you don't have to build a massive, expensive holding cell locally. All you maybe need is a house with proper ventilation and is out of the sun, where product can be stored until it is picked up by refrigerated transport facilities to a real cold store. So I think indeed first mile is important, but looking at what is the low-hanging fruit, what is the easy interventions that you can do, looking at what is the status quo and how can you intervene easily to get big benefits at the beginning. Because I think the most benefits can be gotten at the beginning of the chain right now.
Thank you, Dan. That's no, I think that's a very relevant addition indeed. And I think it's also a nice, even though that we started with this webinar to talk about, we want to move from agriculture, but we still move back towards agriculture because we talk about dairy, fruits and vegetables. But as you're reflecting as well, it's actually more of a symbiosis between the two, and that you're also looking for certain solutions, which are maybe not large upfront investments, but perhaps supplying certain goods, etc., that could also provide these solutions. You also, with some of your specific business opportunities, you listed the whole list with things that you really see as low-hanging fruit, perhaps. You also mentioned something about packaging, correct?
Yeah, this is true. This is true. I think a lot of, at least again, fruit export, a lot of fruit exporters right now, if they want to export, they need to import actually their packaging materials, because it's still quite a niche business, fruit export. And of course, Ethiopia is looking to reduce their imports. And I think it's not that difficult, not that complex of an industrial process to produce packaging materials, at least from rudimentary raw materials. So yeah, I think that's one of the business opportunities as horticulture export picks up, because export markets will usually have quite specific requirements for packaging. So it's really something that a specialized business can find an opportunity in, I think.
Thank you very much.
Let me quickly second that, Sander, because I'm not sure if it's on topic when it comes to cold supply chain or whatsoever, but indeed packaging materials in general is a huge opportunity in order to get, we are using a lot of plastics, but also, yeah, there are hardly any, or not that I know any companies that can help us in innovating when it comes to having proper packaging. And it's not only the plastic cups that we're using, but it's also literally the carton packs that we're using in order to ship the cups from the factory we buy it from to our own factory. And it's those kind of also small innovations on a big scale that can bring this country forward and that can bring businesses forward. So it might be a little bit off topic of cold supply chain, but yeah, I think in general, in the entire supply chain of food, there are very interesting investment opportunities to be made that yeah, can also have a very positive impact on the business itself, as well as sustainability goals in the broader sense of the word.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Merijn, for this reflection, because of course, when we talk about transport and logistics sectors, we talk about beyond the cold chain indeed. And I think that also there, it's scratching the surface, but these kind of opportunities are very relevant to also stress during this session. So thank you again for that. Just moving beyond indeed the cold chain, perhaps can I ask Yodit, because you're within your video, unfortunately, you got cut off. You did mention, Mr. Siraj, you did mention that you are facing some challenges, and I do understand that you're more into perhaps not so much invested in perishables, but more into in other commodities. Can you please reflect upon, you mentioned some challenges. Do you also see some opportunities for some of the participants or businesses to provide certain solutions here? I think Mr. Siraj is still muted. Let me just move on then in that case. Ato Siraj, if there's an opportunity later to answer this question, please do unmute. I see that your video is on. Can you please unmute and respond to the question? Your camera is, you're sorry, you're still on.
Hello?
Yes, thank you. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Come again, please.
So, Mr. Siraj, we were just reflecting on the opportunities, basically the challenges, but also the opportunities specifically for cold chain. But of course, your company is also working in non-consumables. Within your presentation, you reflected on some of the challenges. What kind of opportunities do you foresee, business opportunities for private sector, to provide some of the solutions to the challenges that you mentioned?
Okay, thanks a lot for giving me the chance. There are a lot of opportunities currently. The government is trying all its best to make the logistics investment to bring and to make a lot of advancements regarding the dry ports and other things. What we are seeing currently is there are a lot of hopeful advancements regarding the government, and the government is trying its own. It's all based to help us. Hello.
Please go ahead, Mr. Siraj. The sound is very good.
Yeah, the government is trying all its best regarding the logistics, and the government is striving to privatizing these core sectors such as the logistics and which is the
monopoly logistics service, which is currently under control by the Ethiopian Shipping Lines and Enterprise. And meanwhile, it will be privatized as a great news, and the government is trying to publish and create a lot of rules and regulations which can help the logistics at large. That's what we are so glad to see such kind of change, advancements and changes. This is all what I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ato Zelaush. That's good. Just for me to also, because we're moving towards the conclusion of the webinar now. Unfortunately, Dr. Mengist did not manage to join yet. But unfortunately, also for the other participants, we do have to move towards conclusion. One thing that I did want to also discuss with you today, of course, now we've spoken about very specific solutions and opportunities. We see a lot of developments going on now. So Mrs. Elizabeth, you mentioned during your presentation that a lot of new plans are there to unlock, and that because of that, we are at the forefront of new opportunities. Specifically, you also mentioned something about the multi-model licenses. Can you perhaps explain more about what this actually entails and what kind of opportunities you will foresee for some of the companies here?
Well, as you might have already known, most of the cargoes that are coming to Ethiopia are done by Ethiopian shipping lines on a multimodal basis to date. But by issuing this new regulation, it opens to a certain extent with a requirement for a limited number of companies to participate in the multimodal cargo to transport from origin out to destination in Ethiopia on a multimodal basis. So the regulation is in place. It is not, license is not yet issued to any of the company. But we are hoping that in this year, we will be able to see one or two other multimodal operators, which will create more competition and it makes it more dynamic and more business opportunity for business, for private business sector as well. So that's where it is at now, if I answered you.
Thank you very much. No, absolutely. And just very specific question to you, because of course you have a dual kind of position. You're the chairperson or the head of the association, but of course you also have your own company. So what opportunities would you like to jump in? Or perhaps because it's too much of a competitive question, don't mention the ones that you want to jump into, but specific things that perhaps you would see for some of these attendants here.
Well, there are multiple opportunities. Actually, it is sufficient for all of us. I'm not afraid not to mention, because the opportunities are massive as long as there is sufficient investment and knowledge on the area. I can't, I mean, if I tell you everything, the last mile is one, the dry port development is another one, the cold chain is another, the warehouse services are another. So many massive opportunities. We have not started working on a logistics yet. It is, if we also resolve the major logistics problems, it means we are resolving most of the problems in Ethiopia. So the opportunity for international, national is massive. And luckily with logistics, you do not only compete, you collaborate and work together. I need your service, I provide one thing and you provide me another thing. So it is, you know, hand in hand, we can develop, we can benefit both private, international, national, together we can bring a massive change. So as a company, as a pioneer logistics company in Ethiopia, we wanted to diversify our service already. We are already in so many logistics last mile operations. So we just want to expand our services, the warehouse services. We are building, we start building up warehouses. We are branching out. We do distribution, last mile solution. We do removals. We do personal packing services, high level, high quality. We have moved Lucy, the first humankind, your origin, all over the United States from Ethiopia, and brought her back. We moved back the Obelix Axum, the most complex, from Italy. When it came back, we, together with the international partners. So it's logistics by nature is a collaborative operation, and we can do more. And I am sure you will see PanAfric also collaborating with international and national offices, and we'll do our level best. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for this fantastic conclusion. I think that we have to, that says it all already, what you said, that, you know, it's amazing how you see that you don't only wish to compete, but you also can collaborate. And I think, you know, being in the land of origins where you're saying we can work together, we do these things together. I hope that this is indeed really the forefront of future Ethio-Dutch business. Thank you so much. And thank you also to the rest of the presenters. Unfortunately, that is all for now. We have to move on already towards the wrapping up. I will keep it very short. What can you expect from us now? So as you know, we've already did the first steps. So we have developed a report that describes some of these opportunities. And of course, also we have initiated this webinar thanks to the Netherlands Embassy. So what we will do is we will share this with everybody here that joined us today. And here you can read more about these opportunities. Of course, we also want to get your input, and not all questions might have been answered. So please, in the chat, you will find a link where we ask you to evaluate this webinar, ask more questions, and also express your interest if you want to do something when it comes to Ethio-Dutch business developments. Last but not least, we want to move on indeed to, this is a session that has been very, very positive, I believe. So I think that we can now we do want to move on towards the further business development. So please also express and indicate your interest, and we can afterwards follow up and reach out to you personally. So that was it from our end. I would like to now ask Mrs. Lawenske from the Netherlands Embassy to officially conclude today's session.
Well, let's see if I can get my video started. Yeah, it works. So yeah, from my side, a big thank you to all the participants. I hope this session was very insightful for you. It has been for me. Very good to hear from both the private sector, international, the foreign investors, as well as the Ethiopian private sector and the public sector, to hear what everyone thinks when they talk about transport and logistics and where there are opportunities. A big thank you for all the guest speakers. So Mr. Siraj, Mrs. Elizabeth, Mr. Merijn, Mr. Daan, and Dr. Mengist. Thank you very much for your input that made this session so interesting. And of course, a big thank you to the TRAIDE team who organized this session. And we look forward to stay connected with all of you and to support you where needed. So please feel free to reach out if you think Ethiopia could be of interest for your company to start. Let us know. We're here to support you. I see Dr. Mengist. That's great to see. The final minute. Very welcome and good to see you, sir. So let's keep it to that. A big thank you to all of you, and hope to hear from you soon and to stay connected. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawenske, for your closing remarks. Unfortunately, Dr. Mengist, he could not join for the rest of the webinar, but if you have any questions, again, please fill them in the evaluation form and we'll follow up. Thank you again for your attendance today, for the speakers, for the participants, for today's sessions, and we're looking forward for new exploring business opportunities together. Thank you so much.